Imagine throwing $15 billion into a furnace. That is the reality of Northvolt, a company that was heralded as the savior of European industry, the green champion that would finally break the continent's dependence on Chinese batteries and take the fight directly to Tesla. For years, it was the most valuable private tech company in Europe, a shining beacon of the renewable revolution. But in 2025, the dream didn't just fade, it exploded. The bankruptcy filing sent shockwaves through the global economy, marking the single greatest collapse in the history of the green energy transition. This wasn't just a business failure, it was a national humiliation. It was the moment Europe realized that ambition and billions of euros aren't enough to beat a global superpower at its own game. This is the story of how the world's most guaranteed success became the new Theranos of the energy world, and why its fall might just be the beginning of a much larger industrial collapse. The Northvolt story began with a pedigree that investors couldn't resist. Founded by Peter Carlsson and Paolo Cerruti, two former Tesla executives who had worked directly under Elon Musk, the company promised to bring the Gigafactory magic to the snowy forests of northern Sweden. Their pitch was perfect for the era. They weren't just going to build batteries, they were going to build the world's greenest batteries. By using 100% renewable energy from Swedish hydroelectric plants and pioneering a massive recycling program, Northvolt was supposed to prove that the West could produce essential technology without the carbon footprint or the ethical compromises of the existing supply chain. Governments and giants alike fell over themselves to get in on the ground floor. Volkswagen, BMW, Goldman Sachs, and the European Investment Bank poured staggering amounts of capital into the venture. On paper, it was a masterstroke of vertical integration and regional sovereignty. But beneath the surface, the foundations were already beginning to crack under the weight of impossible expectations. The fundamental flaw was a phenomenon known as overscaling. Northvolt didn't just want to start a factory. They wanted to build an entire ecosystem simultaneously. While still struggling to master the chemistry of high-performance lithium-ion cells at their first site, Northvolt Ett, they were already announcing massive new projects in Germany and Canada. They were hiring thousands of people, many of whom had no prior experience in the notoriously difficult field of battery manufacturing. In the world of high-tech production, scale is a double-edged sword. If your process is perfect, scale makes you rich. If your process is flawed, scale acts as a massive amplifier for your mistakes. At Northvolt Ett, located near the Arctic Circle in Skellefteå, the mistakes were becoming impossible to ignore. Production yields were catastrophically low. The scrap rate, the percentage of batteries that come off the line as useless junk, was reportedly as high as 70% during critical phases. In an industry where margins are razor thin, you cannot survive when 7 out of 10 products you make are fit only for the bin. As the production delays mounted, the geopolitical landscape was shifting violently. While Northvolt was busy trying to figure out how to keep its machines running in the Swedish winter, China was doubling down on its dominance. Chinese manufacturers like CATL and BYD hadn't just mastered the technology, they had perfected the scale. They were flooding the market with high-quality, low-cost batteries, supported by a decade of state subsidies and a fully integrated domestic supply chain. At the same time, the United States passed the Inflation Reduction Act, dangling billions in front of European companies to move their operations across the Atlantic. Northvolt found itself trapped in a pincer movement, crushed by Chinese efficiency on one side and lured by American capital on the other, all while its internal operations were in a state of chaos. The green energy transition was turning into a brutal trade war, and Northvolt was the first major casualty on the European front line. The turning point came with the BMW blow. In 2024, the German automotive giant, which had been one of Northvolt's most vocal supporters, took a look at the 2-year delay in its €2 billion contract and walked away. They didn't just cancel the order, they handed it directly to Northvolt's rivals in Korea. This was the moment the Theranos comparison started to gain real traction. Like the infamous blood testing startup, Northvolt had spent years selling a vision of a technology that wasn't quite ready for the scale it had promised. While there's no evidence of the kind of systemic fraud that defined Elizabeth Holmes' company, the culture of fake it until you make it had clearly permeated the executive suite. They were announcing new billion-dollar partnerships while their existing factory floors were littered with defective cells. The gap between the PR narrative and the industrial reality had become a canyon, and the company was falling right into the middle of it. By the time 2025 rolled around, the financial reality had become a nightmare. The capital markets, which had once treated Northvolt like a tech unicorn, suddenly remembered that manufacturing is a capital-intensive, low-margin business. The easy money vanished. Interest rates remained high, and the global slowdown in electric vehicle adoption meant that the desperate need for batteries was cooling, just as Northvolt needed its customers most. The company began a frantic scramble for emergency funding, begging for state bailouts that never came. European governments, already stretched thin by energy crises and rising defense spending, were hesitant to throw more good money after bad. The national pride that had built Northvolt now became its greatest burden. Admitting defeat meant admitting that Europe might have already lost the race for the next century's most important technology. When the bankruptcy filing finally hit the desks of the regulators, the numbers were staggering. $15 billion in investment had effectively evaporated. Thousands of workers were laid off, and the massive concrete skeletons of half-finished factories stood as monuments to a green dream that had outpaced its own competence. The collapse of Northvolt is more than just a cautionary tale for investors. It is a structural warning for the entire Western world. It reveals the danger of prioritizing ideology over industrial reality. We wanted a green transition that was ethical, domestic, and fast. But we underestimated the sheer difficulty of building a world-class manufacturing base from scratch in a high-cost environment. We tried to build a champion by throwing money at a problem, forgetting that expertise is built through decades of incremental gains, not just quarterly press releases. The aftermath of the Northvolt collapse has left the European automotive industry in a state of panic. Without a domestic battery champion, manufacturers like Volkswagen and Volvo are now more dependent on China than ever before. The dream of energy sovereignty has been pushed back by a decade, if not more. Investors are now looking at other green tech startups with a newfound skepticism, demanding to see actual production yields rather than just glossy PowerPoint presentations. The era of the unlimited checkbook for renewable energy is over. What remains is a harsh landscape where only the most efficient will survive. Northvolt was supposed to be the proof that the West could lead the way. Instead, it became a $15 billion lesson in the difference between a vision and a viable business. As we look at the empty factory halls in Skellefteå, we have to ask ourselves, was Northvolt an outlier, or is it the canary in the coal mine for the entire Western industrial strategy? The answer to that question will determine the economic fate of the next generation. For now, the green energy collapse stands as a sobering reminder that in the world of heavy industry, gravity always wins in the end. The fall of Northvolt wasn't just a failure of a company, it was the shattering of an illusion. And as the dust settles, the reality of the global energy race looks more daunting than ever before. We are left to pick up the pieces of a $15 billion mistake, wondering how we could have been so blind to the cracks in the foundation of Europe's greatest hope. The story of Northvolt is a tragedy of ambition, a perfect storm of geopolitical pressure and internal mismanagement that serves as a final, definitive warning. In the New World Order, being green isn't enough. You have to be better than the competition, or you won't exist at all.